Hello, and it's Sarah Stovetop coming to you live from my kitchen. So I'm getting ready for Passover. It's tomorrow night, and there's a lot of things to do. Earlier today, I went live on my personal page, and I showed how to make harosis, and I shared that also in my business page on Sarah Stovetop on Facebook, and in my VIP club. Sarah Stovetop's VIP club on Facebook. So if you want to join any one of those, you'll be able to see it there. Um, Feel free to share this video because I'm going to be showing you what I did to make two of my Passover specialties. One is brisket, which is a very traditional meal. You know, brisket used to be a very inexpensive cut of meat, and you cooked it for a really long time to make it tender. And so we're continuing that tradition. I have my sister's ex-mother-in-law's recipe, and that has been a staple in our family. And I wanted to just show you what I did. Tonight is just a show, not an actual doing. It's a show and tell. I'll show you the end result, and I'll tell you how I did it. So this is episode 123, I believe, of Tool Time Tuesday. I come live every Tuesday night from my kitchen on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So I'm glad you're joining me. Feel free to type in the comments what where you're tuning in from, what you're planning for your holiday meal if you celebrate. I mean, we've got a lot of holidays coming up. We've got Passover, then Easter, and I believe Ramadan is in there as well. And then there's the Orthodox Easter as well. So, I'm sure there's lots of traditional foods that you prepare or family favorites that you prepare. And I would love to know what you're making. So, oh, my friend Hobbs is here. He always gets a biscuit. So let me turn down the camera so you can see him and I can give him his biscuit because he knows when I go live. Okay, buddy. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, sit. Good fella. There we go. He's a really good catcher of food. Whoops, let me put that away. All right, so good boy. Thank you very much. He says thank you. Anyways, okay, so here we are. I've got a couple of comments from YouTube. Thank you so much for commenting, Hobbs. You have a fan club. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna get another biscuit out of that. Okay, so let me show you this brisket. It came out of the oven a couple hours ago. It's been cooling a little bit, but I haven't opened it yet to see how good it looks. So let's see. I always cook it with a foil top, seal it off, and you can see. So this brisket is covered in onions. I salt and pepper the brisket, and it was almost filling the pan. So there's a lot of shrinkage that happens when you cook a brisket. This is my rectangular baker. It's a piece of stoneware, so it helps to cook very evenly. You don't get hot spots like you do with metal. And this is great because there's a lot of onions on it, and my father-in-law loves onions, so I'm going to share some of this with him and give him some of the gravy as well. And the gravy is made it's so simple. This is probably the simplest recipe you'll ever make. It's 1 cup of hot water, 2 beef bouillon cubes, or I use the better than bouillon, so it's 2 teaspoons full. You mix that up, and then you add a 1/2 cup of ketchup to it. I use the Simply Heinz ketchup because it doesn't have any high fructose corn syrup in it. And that's all it is. And you pour that over. So you salt and pepper the brisket. Then you slice a couple of onions, pretty thin. I use number 2 on my simple slicer. Not so number 1 would be really thin. Number 3 would be a little bit thicker. So this is like about maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. And or maybe, yeah, 1/8 of an inch, I think. And then I cover I take the onions and cover the salt and peppered brisket. And it's about a 3 to 5 pound brisket. It really, kind of depends. And then, it depends on, you just want to cover it, whatever that takes. For me, it was 2 pretty good sized onions, like this big. So large onions. And then I pour that sauce over it. And then I seal it up with my foil. Stick it in a 350 oven. Some people do 325 for about 3 hours. And that is it. Now, what I like to do is make it the day ahead so that it gets cold and it's easier to slice that way. And I'm going to slice it tomorrow using, I forgot to pull this out, using my quick shred. I love this tool. I haven't used it that much for shredding, but I got to tell you, this part is fantastic for cutting evenly. So I use it as a guide for my knife to go into each tine. And look at the size. I mean, there's a perfect slice for brisket, but it's really better to slice it when it's cold. And in fact, I may even put it in the freezer for like an hour before I cut it. I'm going to cool it off for the rest of the evening. I'm going to pack it in the foil, put it in the refrigerator, and I'll just take the onions off the top, and I will put the sauce with the onions in a separate container. Once it's all cooled, I can slice. I might even put it in the freezer for like an hour. I'll slice it, and I'll be good to go. I can just warm it up for our Passover dinner tomorrow night. And it's just my husband and I, because we're all social distancing right now. So our Seder is going to be a virtual Seder or a Zader. I love that. Zoom Seder. So anyways, so that is my brisket. I hope you guys, if I'll pop the recipe in the notes underneath the video just so you can see it. It's so easy. Okay, then the next thing that I'm making, earlier today I made my harosis. I told you about that, and my hard-boiled eggs in my quick cooker. But I also am making meringues because you have to have some kind of great dessert. And my mother-in-law always makes a cake that her Aunt Millie used to make. So she dropped some off today. We social distanced. She left it on the stoop. I gave her some harosis on the stoop, and then she picked that up, and we made the exchange. A little greeting here and there, and that was that. But anyways, keeping our distances, especially since my kids may be watching this. They do not want us being anywhere near their grandparents. Okay, anyways. So the next thing I made was meringues. And because it takes a while to cook, I didn't want to do it while we were on our Facebook Live here. But let me tell you how I made them, and then we'll see how they look, okay? So I use a high-powered mixer. I've got one of these KitchenAid mixers. Can you see it on the counter here? This is it. You use the whisk one. You take you only need 2 egg whites. They should be room temperature. So mine were sitting out for most of the day, and they were room temperature. And then you whip those with an eighth of a teaspoon. It doesn't take much. An eighth of a teaspoon of salt. And when I'm making something so fine like this that you'll really taste the texture, I use the fine sea salt, the Morton's fine sea salt. So I've had this for 2 or 3 years because you don't use that much of it in baking anyways. Then you add another, so that's an eighth of a teaspoon of the sea salt, an eighth of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. And this is what makes it like shiny and everything. Then, a teaspoon of vanilla, which, I still have some Madagascar vanilla. I'm very excited. So that stuff is really good. It's like double strength, so it's super yummy. And then you add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. First you froth that. You get it to be like soft peaks. Egg whites can whip up to really hard. So you want soft peaks, then you start adding the sugar in. And what I use to add the sugar are these flexible prep bowls. These are so good because there's not a lot of room when you're adding something in. Let me see if I can get there we go. So you can see there's not a lot of room here. So by adding it this way, you're able to get it in. It just works better than a hard measuring cup. Just saying. It's fantastic. So this comes in a set of 3. This is the 2-cup size, made it much easier. I could hold it. Then I had basically, it's called for 6 ounces of chocolate chips, and that was pretty much a cup. And then once it was all peaked, once it was all whipped in, the sugar was incorporated, and it was really, really well whipped. The egg whites mixture with the sugar, it becomes like very hard peaks. Then you stop, and you take out the whisk, and then you fold in 6 ounces of chocolate chips. Now, I happen to love the I think these are the Ghirardelli chocolate chips. They're really good. But you could use any chocolate chips. You could use, anything. And you don't have to put chips in. You can put something else in if you want. Nuts. I'm not big on nuts in my cookies, in the meringue cookies, because there's a texture thing too. So anyways, just fold it in. And folding is not mixing. It's like gently rolling it in so that it's mixed throughout. And then you take your cookie sheets. And I did a little experiment. I did a metal cookie sheet and my stoneware cookie sheet. And you cover them with parchment. I use the baking sheets. Whoops, is that right? Is that up? Yeah, I use the baking sheets, and they're reusable. I mean, you could actually, put them in the drawer and reuse them again, because there's not that much that gets on them. But I think that helps to kind of dry them out a little bit. Some people, the recipe I'm using is actually from my Temple Sisterhood from years and years ago. My friend Bonnie Shea's recipe, and she says to use a paper bag. So I didn't want to use a paper bag, especially since some of them have been at the grocery store. They were sitting in the garage. I just didn't want to do that. So I've got fine parchment sheets, and that's fine. And then so you line them with parchment, and then you make small ones. There's small meringues. I use the 1 tablespoon scoop. I love these scoops. It was easy. Once in a while it gets a little caught in there just because of the nature of the meringue. And so I had to use, like another spoon to get it out. But aside from that, it's fine. So are you guys ready to see? Let's see if there's any. Oh, hi, Leah. Nice to see you. I'm going to check the chat, which is on my computer right now. So let's see who else is here. Well, Leah's there. Glad to see you, Leah. Thank you for joining me. Yay. Okay. And I talked about your mother-in-law's recipe. I hope you heard that. Okay, I'm going to bring out the meringues now. And let's see. I'll do it this way so you can see, and maybe turn it down. There we go. Okay. All right, out of the way. Here we go. Let's see how they look. Ooh. Ooh. All right. This is on the metal baking sheet. And they've been cooling in the oven, actually. And I had more than I had extra from what the recipe called for. So I used my little toaster oven pan for that. So we'll see how the stoneware does without the parchment. So there's a lot of experimenting today on these. And then here are this is the stoneware baking sheet, or cookie sheet, I guess we would call it. All right, so that's all done. Now we get to see. Let's find something to take those off the cookie sheet with. There we go. These are the best, the mini serving spatulas. Okay, so let's see one from here. Comes off pretty easily. I want to test it. Yep, they're hard. You want them to be hard. They have to be kind of crunchy and airy. And same thing with this. Oh, that comes off really easily too. That's hard enough. Yep. They feel like nothing. I mean, they're like so light. Hey, Mitch, would you like to do a taste test? And let's see if they come off of this last sheet here. So this is just a mini bar pan. We call it the toaster oven pan. And guess what? I now understand why you would want to use the parchment paper. See, a little bit stuck on there, but still nice. And look at the inside. Ooh, that looks so good. You should see. Yes, well, come over. Why don't you come over? So my husband's in the other room, and he watches me on YouTube. So let's see what he thinks about these. I don't think he's gonna come though. Are you gonna come over? He may be too engrossed in something else. Anyways, that is what I want. Oh, got an itch all of a sudden. Okay, so these were really easy to make, and like I said, very simple recipe. The only thing that is exotic in this is cream of tartar, which is really an essential ingredient. I don't know if there is a substitute for that. I can look that up. There may be maybe arrowroot, but that's also kind of an exotic thing. But if anybody you know makes meringues, um, they've definitely got cream of tartar, and a little bottle, a little jar of it lasts forever, lasts a really long time, unless you make a lot of meringues. Um, and anyways, so how are you spending your, I'm looking to see if there's anybody in the chat. Nope. Okay, no, nothing to respond to. Okay, so what I was going to say is let me know how you are spending uh, your holiday and what traditional foods you might be preparing. I would love to know. I'd be happy to know. Anyways, so we'll be here next week. Um, next Tuesday, Tool Time Tuesday, for episode 124, and we'll see what we're all about. Just wanted to let you know that I'm so happy to be with you. I would love for you to share this with your friends and family if they would be interested. I will be posting the recipes below so that you can make this at home, because these are really easy, really simple recipes. And for the brisket, all you need is the brisket and the onions, and I mean, there's 4 ingredients. How you can't get much simpler than that. And salt and pepper, I guess. So, anyways, thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we will give a testimonial as to how the meringues taste below when we get a chance to sample them. Okay. Thanks for joining me. Have a great evening. This is Sarah Stovetop signing off on Tool Time Tuesday, and this was episode 123. See you soon.